In today's video, I'll show you all how to grow endless amount of potatoes in your garden. So let's go ahead and jump straight into this video. Now, when it comes down to growing potatoes, it is definitely one of the trickiest vegetables to grow out there depending on your area. Now, some areas grow potatoes like crazy and they have endless success. But some areas like mine, we have to be very, very careful with when we plant our potatoes and how we plant them. So coming to our very first point is to make sure you plant them at the right time. Potatoes need to be planted when the temperatures are not too hot and not too cold. So here in South Florida, we have two windows to grow them. One in early fall and one in late winter. In those time frames, the temperatures are not so hot and they're not so cold. So right in between is the perfect temperatures to grow potatoes, for them to grow happy and actually produce good, decent sized tubers for us to harvest at the end of the season. And coming to point number 2 is to choose the right variety. When it comes down to potatoes in general, there is lots of varieties for you to choose from. However, there is short day and long day varieties. Now, if you live in an area that has these temperatures, which are favorable for potatoes for a long time, you could get long day varieties. But if you're in an area like myself that really does not have that much time on our hands, we have to grow short day varieties. Coming to point number 3 is where to plant your potatoes. Now, potatoes are super sensitive, so they can't grow in all soil types. The soil they have to grow in has to be aerated, fluffy, and most important, fertile. Potatoes, like any other root crop, requires a fluffy and well-draining soil because when they produce these tubers for us to eat, they cannot be sitting in compacted soil because then that will prevent any tubers from actually growing. And if they sit in a soil that doesn't drain properly, since these are potatoes, they will rot out very easily. I would recommend having a soil that has peat moss and perlite mixed into it. That will amend your soil to be well draining, retains a little bit of moisture, and have the soil aerated. When it comes down to planting your potatoes, it's quite straightforward. You could cut them up in pieces depending on how big the potato is and how many eyes are on it. You just want to make sure there's about 2 eyes per potato. So coming at number 4 is super simple, which is how to plant them. First things first is you want to add your fertilizer to your soil because they're very heavy feeders. They require constant feeding for them to not only produce well, but for them to stay happy. So before you plant them, add your fertilizer. And all you do is plant them eyes facing upwards about an inch or 2 below the soil surface, and you should be good to go. Now you might realize that I only filled up my raised bed about halfway because when it comes down to them growing more taller, it's better to fill them up with more soil so they could produce more tubers along the side of their branches or their new tender growth. And in general, it helps support the plants. Now from here, you want to make sure you keep the potatoes well watered. Now this step is really important because although they don't like to sit in wet feet because then their tubers or potatoes will rot out, it's also important that you don't allow them to dry out because then they will shrivel up and their plants will die. So I would recommend having a watering schedule to where your plants get watered at least 2 to 3 times per week, which leads to our point number 6 is to keep them well fed. Although you fed them when you plant them, they still require extra feeding throughout their maturing process. So anywhere from feeding them about once or twice every month is ideal for them to produce the best. I always recommend organic matter, so anything like earthworm castings, anything like homemade compost is perfect for potatoes. Number 7 is to stay vigilant. Potatoes are very vulnerable to common pests and disease out there. One of the reasons to why I don't grow potatoes in the ground is because we have lots of critters and bugs that roam around in our native soil that tends to destroy the new tubers that potatoes grow. So by growing them in a raised bed, so I prevent any type of critters from damaging my harvest. But that doesn't mean that they could be attacked by blight or aphids. So just stay vigilant and treat the plant as soon as you see any early signs of pest or disease. And finally, number 8 is to watch your potatoes grow and then harvest at the end of the season. Now, it's really important you keep an eye out for those key signs, which is when the plants bloom, which is your sign that they're starting to develop potatoes. And then once the plant dies back, that is the plant showing you that it's ready to harvest. Now, it's super exciting because everything happens underground. So you won't get to see what you grew up until after the plant has died, which is super exciting and very rewarding at the end of the day. So go out and grow potatoes as you'll see that you'll have endless success and it is super fun. Comment down below what is your favorite variety of potatoes to grow, and make sure to leave a like underneath this video, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and turn on the bell notification button so you get notified when I release a new video. That's going to be it for today's video. May God bless you and your entire family, and never forget to grow big, ultimate gardeners. Bye everyone.